That is our official champagne toast music, and we had to do that because food, wine, and travel writer Hilarie Larson, the wine queen, is back on Big Blend Radio's show today, our food, wine, and travel show today, to talk about the world of bubbly and sparkling wines.
Like it.
We love our little popping the cork time. And, Hilarie, along with, being a sommelier, a co-owner of Northwind's Wine Consulting in Southern California, a wine educator. She obviously writes about travel. She's one of our Big Blend experts. So go to blendradioandtv.com and go to our expert department and click on Hilarie to read about her travels from Catalonia to France to Washington State. And then she's got some great articles on wine as well. But go to her website, too, northwindswineconsulting.com. You'll also find her on Twitter and Facebook under the same name, Instagram, too. Anywhere else, Hilarie? Welcome back, Wine Queen.
Well, thank you, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and almost Happy New Year to you.
I know. Isn't it cool? It's like
that's
it just,
the best wine popping time.
It is champagne season from now there is no non-champagne season.
Exactly.
But from now all the way through to June, because
right.
We've got spring brunches, we got Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, and then I think it ends at Father's Day. Then it's beer takes in the rest of, or Memorial Weekend takes in.
But just briefly, and then it's right back to the bubbles. Bubbles fit with everything, and there's so many different styles and sweetness levels, and there's just something for every occasion to pair with all kinds of different types of food. It's such a wonderful convivial and jovial and celebratory style of beverage. I love bubbles.
I know, and I like to hear the cork pop
beer
too.
Has bubbles, but they're crude.
Yeah,
compared.
Those are dirty bubbles.
Yeah.
I love beer too.
Yes,
so
there are some
really
bubbles that aren't really created in the traditional way, and that's why people will say to me, "Well, I paid $6 for this bottle of sparkling wine, and as soon as I poured it in my glass, it went flat. Why is that?" And I'll tell them it's because it was a very inexpensive bottle of wine, and those bubbles ended up there the same way they end up in your soda pop, in your soft drinks. They're injected. And those bubbles do not last.
When
they're fake
I remember
bubbles.
when we were kids when we were kids in South Africa, we had these soda machines. I think we talked about this on the show before. You added your own bubbles to your juice, and you'd get all the little things. And it was healthier because you weren't. Well, you had the syrup, but it's still not
healthier.
But we would make
sugar.
pineapple juice with bubbles, and then the adults would take it and put rum to it.
But
anyway, I was wondering, could you take grape juice? Oh, well, we'd have to, wine, regular white wine, and then run it through the little carburetor, or the carburetor.
Put it through the carburetor? I have seen, now I do not advocate this whatsoever, right? Going to state that straight away. But I have seen on YouTube people using those at-home soda-making machines.
That's what I'm talking about,
using that with, they'll put a bottle of wine in one of the plastic bottles that goes with the machine and do that. I do not advocate for that because I just think that's kind of nasty. But, hey, to each their own, and if I don't know about it, what do I know, right?
There was a while back, a couple of college kids invented something. They sent us what they called the wine filter thingy, where you pour the wine in, and it would make the wine be better than it actually was. Remember that, Lisa?
Yeah, and then we sent it back because there were porn stickers inside the box.
I know, and
that's why we try everything.
Bunch of pornographic material.
And we're like, no, we just pretend they weren't there. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, you can take this and you can shove it, because that's why we try everything.
Nice choice of words.
Well, I know, really. No, because I can't believe you even brought. They were like, it's not just for wine; it's any liquor. Oh, it'll make it taste like $100.
Oh, there's a lot of gizmos and gadgets out there.
And apparently porn goes with it. So I don't know, but I was like, what are you doing? You're promoting porn. Oh, I don't know how that got in there.
Only you ladies. Only you.
I know. Well,
but let's talk about drinking the stars. I mean, I love this because I think it's so exciting. I know you've got a great article. It's going to go up on blendradioandtv.com next week, everyone. Again, just keep up with Hilarie there, too, for all her articles with us and interviews. But it'll also be featured in our spring issue of Big Blend Radio and TV magazine because, I mean, that is that time where you get to drink it in the morning instead of
Yes, you can. Yes, mimosas, perfectly acceptable holiday time breakfast beverage.
See?
I always thought champagne was specifically meant for the morning.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Champagne is meant for any time of day that you feel you would like to enjoy it. Either champagne or other styles of sparkling wine. I mean, Prosecco, for example, super, super popular right now, very reasonably priced, and it's usually quite lower in alcohol. So a lot of people enjoy that with their brunches and mixed into their mimosas and with cranberry juice and all kinds of things.
That's pretty much what we have on our shows on Sundays. Is that because really otherwise we'll be tongue tied, and I get tongue tied anyway. You know, I need an excuse for it.
But you do have to be careful though, because even if a beverage like a Prosecco is lower in alcohol, as it's stated on the label, the actual bubbles, the carbonation in sparkling wine does help the alcohol get into your bloodstream a little bit faster. It's absorbed faster because of the carbonation. That's why a lot of people get kind of giddy after a few sips of champagne. Sips of champagne. And I'm drinking tea, for heaven's sakes.
But we just get excited, you know. But
I do.
But that is exactly why we drink it.
I know. It's like
we're always in a hurry. Let's get there, man.
I know. But on the shows, all of a sudden we'll just take that one sip and the show started, and we're like, "Yay! Look at this! Who's coming on the show?" Our voices go up and everything gets excited.
You sound like Minnie Mouse.
I know. That was good, right? I know. Let's talk about that later. But. But this is the thing too. There's so many different sparkling wines, and the real champagne being from France. But I have like one question before we get into how this actually works. And I know it may sound really stupid, but I'm blonde. Sorry, blondes. I am really a blonde. When wine is made, I know Nancy's like, what's going to come out of her mouth?
I know, we're all waiting.
I know.
Okay.
Get on with it.
Okay, because we always talk about, there's a drought, drink wine, right?
Yes.
I know that the grapes need water to grow, and so we can have the grapes for the wine. Does water ever go into winemaking, or is it just pure juice and then the way it's done? Like, is water put into winemaking? I mean, really, do they add water to the grapes to make the wine?
Only in severe cases, and that's very, very rare. Water is used, as you say, to help grow the grapes. Not everywhere. There are still parts of the world where they do not irrigate.
They do dry farming.
So, that is a yes and sometimes no. And a lot of water is used in the production for cleaning the cellar and cleaning the tanks and the barrels and the various pieces of equipment that are used to produce the wine. But when you get your wine, it is just juice. It is alcohol. It's the grape juice that has fermented and produced alcohol. But grape juice itself is mostly water.
Yeah.
That's
and
sugar.
Yeah, I mean, it's water and sugars and different acids, but there is water inside the grape juice. But no, they don't take grape juice like a concentrate and add a whole bunch of water to it. Now, there may be some very, very inexpensive wines that you might find, like Thunderbird or something of that ilk that maybe are made in that fashion. But real wine does not have added water.
Yeah, maybe Ripple does because it's got ripples.
I think Ripple is
I mean, I don't consider
that
wine, really. That's just
it's soft syrup.
Yeah, I mean, those kinds of things are more just alcoholic beverages, or sometimes they're a fruit and wine beverage. You see those in the stores too. But truly, the wine that you buy at your at the wine retail outlets or at the winery, no, they're the real deal.
Yeah. Okay, so now the thing though, water will affect it in regards to like the quality of the grape, like how, or if you're dry farming, that's a different thing too. But so I know with champagne, it's a drier thing. I was just at a store this morning and talking with a lady, and she was like, I want to try sweet wines. That's what I like. And I'm like, okay, I can't help you with that. We're just chit-chatting, small talk in a store. And so I'm like, well, Moscato would be
hobby.
that. And then it's like so weird because Moscato used to be a wine. Now it's a champagne or a bubbly thing. Now it's like, here, I don't understand what's going on with the Moscatos and the levels. And she's like, oh, I tried to get rosé because I thought it would be sweet. And I'm like, no, it's dry, and it's cool. And she goes, well, I didn't really like it. Like, I'm like, you meant the pink wine box, didn't you?
Yeah.
So it was an interesting conversation I had this morning with someone.
Yeah.
And, but she was trying to learn about wine, and I'm like, I think you should call Hilarie. But,
can I just say that the wine that comes in the boxes in this country pretty much suck.
Not anymore.
But it's changing.
Yeah.
It is changing,
Yes, it is, because it's actually a good way to keep wine. In South Africa, the wines that came in the boxes were great. They were awesome wines. So
yeah, and in Europe it's the same way. Not all of them are good, but not all of the wines that are in a bottle are all that terrific either. I mean, it's all subject to your individual preferences, what you consider is good.
Oh, see, that's it. So this lady wants to have pink Zinfandel. That's her thing. Go do it.
There you go. And she's not alone.
Want Moscato? So is truly Moscato with bubbles, like, is that normal?
Well, in some ways, yes. I mean, I think what you're referring to are some of the popular wines where, because Muscat or Moscato has been very, very popular in recent years, and so people, in order to sort of jump on that bandwagon of that grape variety's popularity, some companies make other products with it. Is that what you're speaking of?
Mm-hmm.
So they'll just do like a carbonated Muscat.
They're adding bubbles to the Moscato.
Right. So that is kind of, like I say, getting on the bandwagon and taking advantage of the popularity of that grape varietal. But in Italy, they have been making sparkling wine from the Moscato grape for hundreds and hundreds of years. And you may know it, some people, there's one version called a Moscato d'Asti, which is it's not really sparkling, it's just sort of slightly effervescent or spritzy. And then there's Spumante, and Asti Spumante. Asti is the region in the Piedmonte area of Italy where it's made, and it is a sparkling wine that is made with the Moscato grape.
There it goes.
Okay. See,
and it does tend to be a bit sweeter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But not super sweet, but just a little bit sweeter.
I think that's the first, type of sparkling wine, I was going to say champagne, that I ever had. And as, young adults, we were like, look, the bubbles, it's champagne, So that was, I think, the very first, in South Africa, it's big. And I was just watching friends have a party, and there I saw the bottles everywhere. And I was like, and I remember Cold Duck coming in.
Oh, Cold Duck.
Remember Cold Duck?
Is that still on the market?
Is that normal? What is that?
Hey.
I know, it's a strange name, isn't it?
The Cold Duck met the smoking loon, and they got married.
I mean, what is Andre? I mean, that's what I think people right now, especially in the holidays or in Valentine's Day or even the brunch, are like, what's Andre? Is that really it or not? And what is Cold Duck after all? Is it pink food coloring in champagne?
To be quite honest with you, I have never investigated the vinification process of Cold Duck. But I would hazard a guess that it is produced not in the traditional champagne method, which is quite involved and labor-intensive, but there are other ways to produce sparkling wines in larger amounts. And as I said, sometimes they will they'll take a still white wine and they'll just inject it with CO2, just like they do with soft drinks and in your soda machines that you were talking about, only on a really, really large scale.
Wow.
And
it's
a perfect,
wine.
for some people who just want something that's a little on the sweet side and want to spend, just a token amount of money just to have one bottle on New Year's Eve or something. If they enjoy it, go for it.
Power to you. I think everybody, it's like not everybody has the wallet to do like the big fancy stuff, So everybody's got to do what they got to do, and it's just an interesting thing because you go into a store, and I was thinking about you this morning. I was looking at everything, going, well, what is that? Because I read your article, and it's like, wow, the actual process of champagne is big. I mean, this is something ancient, and it takes time, and then again, we were talking about this in the beginning. It's like champagne is only from Champagne, France, right? We got to be 100% clear on this.
That is correct. When you see only the wines, the sparkling wines produced in the Champagne region of France, which is just to the east of Paris and a little bit north, only those wines are legally allowed to have the name Champagne on them. Now, there are still, in America, we used to have champagne on the labels of any old sparkling wine. And the people in Champagne put their foot down and they said, no, this is our name, it's from our region. And so gradually you've seen those labels disappear. And so now they'll say, they used to say California Champagne, and now they're gradually changing to California Sparkling Wine or New York Sparkling Wine. But definitely, only real champagne, true champagne, can only be produced in the Champagne region of France.
Okay, but
end story.
Now we were at a winery where
that's it. She closed the book on that.
No, I know. I'm opening the book.
No, you can't.
I'm going to the index.
I'll feed you Ripple.
No, we were at a winery where we were told that they were making sparkling wine, but they were using the champagne method, whatever. They were using the same method of making champagne.
But a different baby came out.
But in actual fact, it's champagne, but they're just not allowed to say so.
Sorry, that was terrible.
The champagne method is exactly that. It's called the méthode traditionnelle or méthode champenoise.
And
it is
champenoise,
and it is the steps, the method of producing champagne, where the second fermentation, the one that creates all those wonderful bubbles, takes place inside the bottle.
Right.
And there are various other steps involved as well. Now, you can replicate and make a wine anywhere in the world using that same method, those same steps, but it is not legally champagne because it's not performed, and the grapes do not come from the Champagne region of France. And that's where we get into a word that we've discussed before, that wonderful word terroir, and how each region of the winemaking world has its own distinct characteristics. I mean, sometimes you can nail it down to each, little vineyard or little plot has its own distinct character. And so no other wine produced from those grapes will taste the same as the ones from that particular spot. And that's one of the reasons. That's got to do with the soil and the climate and the lay of the land and so many other variables that make up the terroir of Champagne that make it so distinctive.
So when someone like over here in I know Southern California, Temecula area too, Napa, there are wineries, and they say this is produced. This sparkling wine is produced in that method, the champenois, however you pronounce it. Do that again.
Méthode is either méthode traditionnelle, traditional method, or méthode champenois.
Okay, méthode champenois. So
method of champagne.
Yeah, so they're making it in that
method.
way, but they're not labeling it. No one. I mean, you won't get anywhere if you label your sparkling wine champagne. Well,
actually, it's not legal. They're not allowed to do that.
Legal.
It would not be. Their label design would not be passed, and they wouldn't be allowed to.
But they say this is the process, and so it takes so long for it because there's that whole turning process. And so let's start from the beginning, because you explain this so well in your article. It's like, yay, but what? Okay, so let's say they go out and they get the grapes. So whatever grapes they're using, right?
Right.
And from
so
there, what happens?
We're talking about champagne. There are three main grape varieties that are grown in the Champagne region. There's Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. And what they do is, now this is most of the time, of course, that's one thing you learn about when you talk about wine and you learn about wine, is that for every one fact you learn, there are probably about 5 different permutations to it. So,
okay.
Yeah, no, I get
so
that.
if you think, wait, she just said that, but wait, there's an exception. It happens all the time. So those are the 3 main grapes that are used. And they can be either, you can make a wine from, say, just Chardonnay all by itself, or you can make, they can make a blend of those 3 varietals. And there's also a few other minor varieties that they use too. But for all intents and purposes, it's Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Pinot Meunier. Most of the famous champagnes that we see in our stores here, like Moet Chandon and Perrier Jouet and Veuve Clicquot and so on, are what we call the sort of the house wines. So they will blend different grapes. They'll make base white wines out of the grapes from different vineyards all throughout the Champagne growing region, the designated region. And they make them very dry. And because they're in a very cool climate, the grapes don't have a lot of sugar in them when they don't get super, super ripe, like they do, say, in south of France, for example, or here in Southern California. So the wines turn out to be very dry, so they have little to no residual sugar left, and they have a higher level of acidity in the wine. Then what they'll do is they will blend these different base wines together to form a wine that's their house style. That's why you can go and buy a bottle of Veuve Clicquot year after year after year, and you know it's going to be the same as it was last time you opened a bottle. So it's very consistent. Then what they do is they put the wine into the big, clunky, heavy champagne bottle, and they add what is called oh my goodness, my mind just totally freaked and went blank. But they add a little mixture of sugar and yeast. And then they put a crown cap on it, just like you have on a soda bottle.
Right.
And they leave it, and then they take these bottles down into the beautiful, beautiful, cool chalk cellars beneath their wineries, and they lay them down. And as the wine lays there, the yeast goes, yee-haw, sugar, let's party. So it starts eating up all the sugar that's been added to this base wine. And as they do that, they create extra alcohol, and they also create all these bubbles, all this CO2. But the CO2 has nowhere to go. It's trapped inside of this bottle. And so the bubbles gradually incorporate themselves into the wine, creating the wonderful sparkling wines that we so enjoy. Now, as the yeast is doing all of this and creating all these bubbles and the alcohol, eventually they will die off. And when they die off, they form a sediment in the bottom of the bottle, because the bottles are laying on their side. So it forms this sediment.
Yeah.
And we call that the lees. And the lees are actually good, because as the lees and the wine sit there together, a process called autolysis takes place, and that's what gives champagne, that distinctive sort of like a yeasty fresh bread or brioche aroma, sort of nutty flavors, that kind of thing. That's all caused by this process of the wine interacting with the lees. But you don't want the lees in there, and for hundreds and hundreds of years, this was a problem. They had this wonderful wine, but it had all this cloudiness to it. So the widow, or Veuve Clicquot, from the winery by the same name, created...
So this is a lady.
She is a lady, most definitely. And
so here we go.
The widow
I just want to bring this up. We talk about all the women winemakers out there in the world. Like, this started a long time ago.
Oh, yes, very much so. And she discovered, I think it was in the early 1800s, a way to get all that sediment out of the bottle. And that's why if you go into the champagne houses, you see these V-shaped racks with holes in them, and the wine bottles stuck in these holes. and that rack is called a pupitre, and it is a manner of moving the bottles, and it's called riddling. So the holes in the rack are at at a certain angle, about 45 degrees or so, and they put the bottles neck down into these holes, and every day a person will come along and they will turn the bottle an eighth of a turn, give it a very tiny little shake as they do so, and they'll go down the racks and up and down the racks turning these bottles. And it'll take all that sediment and gradually move it down into the neck of the bottle. Now, only the really finest champagnes are done by hand. Nowadays, there are big machines that do it, where they'll put cases and cases of wine into these gyro pallets, and they, instead of taking 4 to 6 weeks to do this, they can do it in no time.
Yeah. But
the sediment moves to the neck of the bottle, and then it is taken for opening. And what they do is they take the neck of the bottle and they submerge it in this really cold, briny liquid, this water, and it freezes that sediment. And then they pop open the crown cap, and that plug of sediment pops out. And usually a little bit of wine will also come out with it, which is such a shame. But what they do is they top that up with what's called the dosage. And the dosage can either be just the plain base wine, or they can add a little bit of sugar to it, just a tiny little bit. And then they put the cork on and that wonderful wire cage to hold it in place, and the foil capsule, and give the wines a little bit of a shake, and then they go back into the cellar for 1 year or more until they're released for consumption. So as you can see, that's just a very quick snapshot of the different steps. But it's really, really highly involved, very labor-intensive. It takes quite a long time, and that's why some champagnes are more expensive, because of that time that it takes to make the quality product.
And so this Clicquot, right? Am I saying that right? Okay, so we had a guest on our show the other week, a musician over in England, and he calls in before we go live on our Champagne Sunday show, and he goes, he's got a very thick accent, and you have the whole, the however you pronounce the whole thing, and Nancy and I both went, what? And all of a sudden, like my nightmares of radio drama of like. Because I'm a Virgo and everything has to be so like perfection, get everybody on board, And I'm like, oh my God, a band member was supposed to be on with him or another musician, and I didn't email them or whatever. I didn't know what the hell he was saying, and I'm like, what? Nancy and I both went, what? And I'm going, is that a person's name? And oh my God, is somebody who's supposed to be on the show with you? I didn't know, And he's like, I'm talking about champagne, and I'm like, okay, well, welcome to Champagne Sunday. I didn't hear what he was saying. He's
the vouvois.
But I know it from looking at the label. But when someone says it, I have no clue what they're talking about.
It's a French name spoken by a British musician.
I know, and he's the coolest guy. But awesome.
Like,
by the way, you need to go check out that music because it's Pink Floyd. By the way, it's total Pink Floyd music. Yeah. Cairo is the band. Cairo,
like the name of the city in Egypt.
Yeah, CairoRocks.com. One of the progressive rock veterans of our country, of England, I should say. Really good, like one of the best albums I've heard in that genre for years. Like really
Excellent.
Cool. But anyway,
check that out.
But when he said that to me, it's like luckily it was before we went on air. But that's the thing. I think it gets so like we don't like for me, I don't know what I'm looking at on a label. Like I don't know that was what he was, because I don't put like when you say it now. I can go and look at that label and know what he's talking about. You know what I mean? I can take what you're saying now and see and like, oh, I know what you're talking about. And as soon as your article came in, I'm like, that's what he was talking about. I know that. I know exactly what he's talking about. Like, I know that champagne, but like I don't know how to say it. And I wonder how many people are like me who go in and have just there's like that. I think that we as a wine drinking society have to learn how to pronounce these things because it helps us to kind of put the place.
That's
you know?
why you travel.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? And it's hard. I think that's the thing. For me, it's very hard unless I'm there to do it.
But if you went to France,
then I'd learn
then
everything.
you would know,
and
you'd be easy. It would be easier for you to.
And you just have
French
to be,
wine.
you have to put your vanity aside and realize that you're going to say things. You're always going to say things incorrectly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
you just go for it.
Just come to
That's
Big
what I
Blend
say.
Radio. I say it all wrong all the time. But but to me that's the part of it. I don't care because I want to learn something and to me this is so cool. In 1 week I'm like, okay, this is what they're talking about, and I did not know the history. Did not know a woman was involved in 1806 with this. This is so cool.
Yeah.
Women's history comes in. But now Dom Perignon, I want to talk about Prosecco and everything too, but Dom Perignon, like there's like, okay, so I always thought he was the head dude of Champagne, and in your article you say, well, maybe not.
That's the story. And one thing about Champagne is they know how to market their product. They are excellent. This whole idea that we have of Champagne being a wine of celebration and festivities and so on was mostly due to wonderful posters of the Art Nouveau period and marketing, because the Russians were the largest market for Champagne, the local French aristocracy and the Russian czars and so on. And then when that market sort of fell apart, and after that all happened, they needed to find new markets for their wine. So when the Gilded Age was going on, and Champagne Charlie and all these high-flying people all over the world, that sort of first jet set, of very wealthy people, having champagne as the drink of the rich and the privileged, and the wine to have to make your celebration the best it can be, was all part of that. And one of the stories that got caught up in that was of Dom Perignon. And Dom Perignon was actually a very important figure in the world of Champagne. He was a Benedictine monk, and in the 1600s he was the cellar master at one of the large abbeys in Champagne. And he was very progressive. He gets a lot of credit for figuring out many of the things that we still do in the Champagne process today. The blending of the different grape varietals and realizing that Chardonnay will contribute something and Pinot Meunier something else. And so that whole idea came with him. A lot of the viticultural practices were very innovative, and those were Dom Perignon's ideas. So, he did contribute a lot, but this idea that he all of a sudden was in his little cellar in Champagne and discovered that the wine was sparkling, and he came running out and said, come quickly, I'm drinking the stars. Well, it's this beautiful, colorful, romantic image, but it's probably not true. So, I hate to break it to everybody. But, it's still kind of a fun idea, and it's very romantic. But, sparkling wines were created probably mostly by mistake for hundreds and hundreds of years because, wineries didn't, and little wine cellars, they didn't have refrigerated tanks and things like that we have now in order to control the temperature of wines. They just rely on whatever nature gave them. So they would make their wine at harvest time, and it would seem to them that, the wine had stopped fermenting, so they put it in the bottle, and then they put it away, and it would sit there in the cold of the winter in the cold cellar, and then in the spring when temperatures warmed up, all of a sudden it would start to re-ferment in the bottle, making those bubbles. It wasn't intentional. But, it took them a long time before they actually figured out how to control that fermentation and have it happen how and when they wanted it to. And the first people that say they did it were the monks at another abbey down in the Languedoc region, which is in the southwestern part of France, and at the Abbey Saint-Hilaire, and they're in the Limoux area. Wonderful wines in Limoux, and they're sparkling. and they say that they did it. And Dom Perignon came to visit them, and apparently he was quite the ladies' man.
I was going to ask you about that. I didn't know if he was a boys' man or a ladies' man.
He was a priest?
It was a monk.
Yes, he was a monk, but he didn't act very monkly, apparently, when he was visiting the Abbé in Limoux.
Well, I was just going because I just look at the Catholic Church and all the priests and little boys.
That's a new word. I like
so
monkly.
I didn't know, but monkly. Are you monkly?
Yeah.
You're not being monkly.
Are you?
No, but actually,
awesome.
the Trappist monks have been, known for
but
their beer.
Celibate?
Well, apparently, the Dom was not. I don't know. I mean.
Well, that's what they say in Limoux, and that he was asked to leave the Abbé, and they think that he took their winemaking secrets with him to Champagne, and hijacked their ideas. So they lay claim to it, but now they're saying that it's actually the English.
Really?
That really nailed down the Champagne process, because the key to what makes it the Champagne method or the traditional method is that re-fermentation, that controlled re-fermentation, the second one, taking place inside the bottle. And the English were great importers of still wines from Champagne, just the good old standard white wines from Champagne. But they found that for a lot of the wine merchants in England found that they were a bit too harsh for their customers' palate. So the wine used to be transported in big casks, and then the merchant would decant it into bottles and put a closure on it and sell it on to the customer. So what they started to do was they realized that if they added certain flavorings or they added a little molasses or a little sugar, voila, they could create the sparkling wines. And they could control it, and they knew what they were doing, and they did it purposely. And the British also had the advantage that they were, by then, producing very, very strong glass. And that heavier, thicker, stronger glass could withstand the pressure that was created inside the bottle by the second re-fermentation.
Right.
Because before then, they used to explode all the time.
Awesome.
Wow.
So, and now, of course, the Brits have this
not
great sparkling wine industry going on.
Well,
so
I love it because the bottles are heavy. Like, you could kill somebody with that bottle. Like, if you needed to knock them over the head. I mean, it's heavy.
Nice.
It's like, no, I mean, it is. And it's something like, don't, take care of your bottles. Use them as vases later or something. I don't know.
Yeah, champagne can be dangerous.
Yeah, it can. But I always think about, you were on a segment with me a little while ago talking about, wine glasses and champagne glasses, and we had a belated Thanksgiving with some friends, and all in the hospitality industry in different forms. And we arrived, and I don't know, suddenly in front of a bunch of people I didn't know, started talking about Marie Antoinette's boobs. And I said, well, Hilarie says so. We were just, there's like our friends, and then there were like all these new people there. And I'm like, this is about the champagne, because everyone started talking about the champagne glass versus, the flute versus the flat one. And then I'm like, well, that's about Marie Antoinette's boobs. And then I'm like, am I talking about her boobs? I've never seen them. I don't know. Like, what were they doing? Cupping them? I don't know. But apparently that's her boobs. But didn't she really drink a lot of champagne on all those extravagant parties she had? She was like known. Like, she smoked weed too. And then
I didn't know that. But the champagne, it's known as the king of wines and the wine of kings because it was so incredibly popular with the aristocracy. And one of the main cities in the Champagne region, Reims, where there's a beautiful cathedral of Notre Dame de Reims, is where the first king of France, Clovis, was crowned, and subsequently for the next 600 years, all the French kings had their coronations in Champagne. So you can guess what they celebrated with.
Yeah, see? It's interesting. The yeast here is the story, the power of the yeast. Making bread, I learned that if you forget that you left the bread on the counter there with the little towel over the bowl to rise, the longer you leave it, the bigger the holes in the bread, and the different the taste. And it's very similar to making champagne or wine. It's yeast is like this microbe that I don't know. It's an interesting thing because it does affect the timing and the taste of everything. And it is
definitely
interesting. Like I had a recipe before we went on the tour, which I got to get to my friends and say, give it back to me, for making 5-minute bread.
Yeah.
And you make it up, and then instead of sitting it on the counter and leaving it, you just stick it in the fridge, and it would rise slowly in the refrigerator, way slower, and so you get that texture of bread without the great big holes. You get finer texture, and you don't have to. Yeah, it is interesting. It's about the temperature of the yeast when it can. I don't know if it's just microbes multiplying or what's going on in there, but the hotter it is, the faster it grows.
That's right, and that's the same with making wine too. If the temperature of the wine is warmer, the fermentation will finish sooner than if it's a cooler one. And that's why a lot of white wines are fermented at cooler temperatures, because it is slower and it retains more of the fruity characteristics of the grape. So, yeah, definitely. And there's so many different kinds of yeasts, and, there's yeast in the vineyard, there's yeast in the soil, there's yeast on the grapes, there's yeasts everywhere.
Well, I have to talk about pot, because apparently she did not, Marie Antoinette did not smoke weed, okay? I'm getting donnered. People are emailing me.
Or are people correcting you?
Are
they emailing you?
No. Yeah, I'm getting like, no, she did not.
Smoke?
She did have her cigarettes or her tobacco, but apparently, like, even her,
don't forget tobacco.
Her entourage, she used to hate them smoking all the time, and they used to mess with her with that. So apparently, she really wasn't. She did smoke, like here and there when she was hammered or whatever, champagne, but she did not smoke weed that we all know of. So I'm getting like, apparently not.
People forget that smoke.
Donnered being a South African word.
No, tobacco is a drug, and it does alter your mind.
Well,
somewhat.
Anyway.
It does.
I did try smoking catnip once, but anyway, don't do that. Don't ever do that.
No, that was really funny.
No, it's not good.
Hey, she had all the champagne she could drink, probably the best champagne there was. So
I know. Think about back then.
What does she need anything else?
I know, really, but I was just, anyway, there's some good songs with it. Champagne and Reefer, man, just saying. Good blues music. Really one of my best, like one of my favorite songs.
Do they even have pot in Europe?
This is not a pro-pot show. I know our last time we talked about pot.
I know, we talked about it last time, too.
Now everyone's going to think I'm high on every show. No.
But I don't even know.
Only one of them a year.
I don't think that plant actually natively grows in Europe.
I don't know. But, it's like, I think Quentin Tarantino movies screw everybody up. I'm not saying she was in a movie with, she wasn't filmed. But, he takes history and puts, history and now into one thing. And so now people don't know what to believe when they watch anything.
Now, that's when you smoke pot and watch a Quentin Tarantino.
I've never done that. Not even Pulp Fiction. But anyway, going back to champagne, I just had to correct that because apparently I was wrong. But, everything Anyway, I thought she was a little stoner party animal, but apparently not. But she was a party animal, and she's got her own glasses, so there you go.
Well, she could have been stoned on something else.
Yeah, who knows? Okay, so let's go to. I'm bringing us back in. I'm reeling this in.
Okay, rein us back in.
Okay. So now we've got champagne, cava, and Prosecco are different, and you can't have rosé, right, involved in this, because
most
if I don't bring up rosé, you'll be sad. I know.
Oh yeah, definitely. And a lot of people think, it's pink champagne, it's pink rosé champagne is going to be sweet, just like that lady you were speaking to, with her white Zinfandel and her disappointment that the rosé she bought was dry. I love rosé champagnes because they're made sometimes they're made with the red grapes. The the Pinot Noir and Pinot Meunier. Champagne is one of the few areas in the winemaking part of world, and especially in France, where you are allowed to add a little bit of red wine into the white to create the pink. But most of the fine rosé champagnes are made from red-skinned grapes, and they just take the juice off the skins when it's the perfect color, and they have the most wonderful flavors and aromas of fresh red berries and a little bit of sometimes a little hint of spice or pepper and they're white pepper usually, and they're just fabulous wines and great with food. I mean, you can drink rosé champagne, as an aperitif and take it right through your meal, and just keep going.
It pretty much goes with everything.
It does. I'm a big fan of them. I'm also a big fan of another type of sparkling wine from France called Cremant, and you'll see that in the stores. It's made in the same way as champagne, so that same méthode traditional method, but because it's not made in the Champagne region, they have to call it something else. So you'll find sparkling wines called Cremant from Burgundy. You'll find them from the Loire Valley, where they're made with Chenin Blanc a lot of times. You'll find them in Alsace, and they are a really, really nice sparkling wine, good quality, and usually a little bit less in price than champagne. So if you're looking, if you're having a party and you've got to buy quite a bit of wine, the Cremant's a great choice, and so is Cava. And Cava is also made in the same way as champagne, that same method, but there they use local grapes. They use Jarolo and Macabeo and Parellada. So, yeah, and they, like champagne, they can go from really bone dry, that's called Brut Nature, or is it Brut Nature or Dosage Zero. So they don't have any added sugar after the second fermentation. Wow. So if you like a really dry sparkling wine, those are fabulous. And then they go all the way up to very, very sweet, which are wonderful with dessert. So a little bit of everything.
It depends on the grape.
I think exactly. The terminology is very confusing for people when, somebody says, oh, well, that's very dry, and it's a liquid. Some people's minds just can't go there. They're not understanding. They're not understanding dry.
No.
Because it's liquid. Okay, that's a very dry this. Okay, really, but it's liquid. So it really is.
Well, you really don't have a vacuum cleaner on your tongue.
No, when somebody's shopping and they really aren't
knowing,
and they're new at this, dry, not so dry, extra dry. They're all like, well, how could it be dry when it's liquid?
Yeah,
I know. So, when I worked in tasting rooms, I had that question pretty well on a multiple basis every day, and it is confusing because you're right. Dry is like the opposite of wet. Well, wine is wet, so what are you talking about? But when we say dry, what we're talking about
say this is like extra wet.
Yeah. When we talk about, and I think I've mentioned this before on the show, is when in the world of wine, when we say dry, we're talking about the absence of residual sugar in the wine. So a dry wine has little to no leftover sugar. The yeast has consumed it all and turned it into alcohol and CO2. So, and then it's the opposite of sweet in wine terminology.
Yeah.
What I like about Prosecco is it's like Cava to me is it's dry and like almost very bubbly. Like it's just kind of lighter in a different way. I can't explain it, but it seems lighter, drier, and smaller bubbles. But like Prosecco, it's almost oily to me. I don't know how to explain that other than like the bubbles seem bigger to me, and like it's like
it's true they are.
Cava.
It's not your imagination. The fineness of the bubbles is, remember how I was talking about when the wine undergoes that second fermentation inside the bottle,
right.
and the yeast is partying it up and producing alcohol and the CO2 gas, and how the gas gets trapped. The longer the wine is has to undergo that second fermentation, and the longer the wine rests and sits with the yeast and all that, and is enclosed in the bottle, the more the bubbles and the gas become one with the liquid. They're bound into the liquid. When they make Prosecco, they make it in a completely different way. They make it in a method that's called chamon, or tank method. So it starts out in a similar way, in that they make the dry base wine, and Prosecco is made from a grape variety called Glera. They used to call it Prosecco, but the real name for it is Glera. And then instead of the fermentation, the second fermentation taking place inside the bottle, it's done inside a big pressurized stainless steel tank.
Wow.
And it's a faster process. It's sort of like a bulk process. And this type of production is really good if you have grape varieties that have a lot of really fruity and floral aromas to them, and you want the end product to be very bright and lively and fresh. And you will find that the bubbles, because they're created in this big tank rather than inside a small bottle for a longer period of time, are larger in size, and they also don't last as long in your glass most of the time.
No, it's slower. It's like this. It's different. It's not bad. I like Prosecco, but it's different. It's like a different. It's just different. You know what I mean?
It's a different thing. It's a different grape. It's a different process.
Yeah.
And if you drink a really fine champagne, a really well-made champagne that has been on the lees for a long time, and then laying in the cellar for a long time, and you look at the stream of bubbles coming up from the bottom of the glass, they will be rapid, and they will be there'll be millions of them. They'll just be this steady stream of little tiny bubbles just exiting, heading for the top of that wine glass. But Prosecco, they'll be a little slower and a little bigger.
Yeah, that's what.
And that's why it usually costs less money to buy a bottle of Prosecco.
Yeah, when we hike, that's kind of what we do. You don't take good stuff on your hike, unless you have all the refrigeration and stuff. And so when we hike, it's usually Cava or Prosecco, and it's like interesting, and you it almost feels like there's more sugar in it. And I think that's why it appeals to us after a hike. I don't know. I'm just saying. It just happens that way. Like, when you're hiking and you take your, that bottle goes for a while with us up wherever we're going. And, so I always wondered, what did I do to the bottle? Did you know what I mean? Did I shake it up? And
it could be it's not cold enough, too, when you drink it.
Yeah, by the time you get there. Now I have products for that now. We have a wine,
the wine bag.
The stubby strip now. No, seriously. We took it. We had to take wine to our friend's Thanksgiving thing, right? And it actually wraps up. We've been looking for hiking things for wine for years. And this Australian dude created this thing. So it's like a cozy for, how they have it for beer? It's for wine bottles.
Oh, it's like a gel pack?
Yeah,
that you put in your freezer that goes around the wine bottle, that kind of thing?
You put an ice bottle of water in the middle,
and
you can wrap
they're called winesicles?
No. This is like it's like a cozy that you can put 4 bottles of wine in, and it wraps up together like a little set. It looks like a 6-pack, but for wine, and they do one for beer and that kind of thing, but this is for wine. And it's 4 bottles of wine, and you can put, they have it where it could be a portable bar for martinis and whatever.
Not that we drink that much.
Anyway, no, this is the
don't
coolest
take
thing
a portable martini bar up to the top of the mountain.
And you walk out. I walked out. I had 4 bottles of wine, and I'm carrying it, so the wine is on the side, and Nancy's flipping out, dude, it's going to fall out.
Yeah.
No, it's not, and it doesn't. It is so tight, and it insulates the wine, and you can put, a ice bottle of water in the middle of the 4, and it keeps it cold. It's the coolest thing ever.
It's way cool.
That's our new thing. And now
literally.
our newest newest thing that we're trying out is this bag. It looks like a beach bag that you're taking out. However, it has a side pocket that's insulated, and you have your own wine, like inside the wine box, it has a wine bag that you fill up with whatever wine. You obviously wouldn't do it with champagne, right?
Yeah.
But you can fill it up with wine. It'll keep it cool, and you just pop the little flap, and you got like a little water, like a wine spigot. And so out of your bag, you could be sitting there and just pour yourself a glass of wine, and no one will know. Just telling you.
And then you shove the spigot back in, and you're like, what are you talking about?
The world of wine products is blowing my mind.
I know. There's a million things out there, aren't there?
It's wild. I had no idea. But I do want to go back to Germany now because this is interesting because Germany has some interesting wines. Don't they do ice wine and stuff like that too?
Are they mostly white?
Yes, they are. They do grow and make wines from Pinot Noir, quite a few parts of Germany. But because they're so far north, just like Champagne is, Champagne is really these areas are right on what we call the sort of age or the range of viability for producing wine. So they tend to do more white wines than red in Germany. Yeah.
So they're drinking sect. Is that
sect? Yeah.
You got to say that carefully.
And as I noted in the article, that the Germans, they love sparkling wines. They are actually the highest per capita sparkling wine drinkers in the known universe.
Wow. I have a friend who's German, and her mom went through a series of health issues, strokes, that kind of thing. And her doctor, and her healing part of her journey in therapy, actually said, here, you need to have half a glass of champagne in the morning, sparkling wine, champagne, in the morning before you do anything. And that was part of it. Had to do with her blood pressure and all kinds of things. And apparently made great strides. So I'm just saying.
I've subscribed to that.
I was just cracking up when I read this in your article. I'm like, well, there goes, our friend's, grandma, her mother, who's a grandma. I'm like, that's how she's waking up every day. And I know they love coffee over there, but apparently he said move that and have the bubbly and only half a glass, and it changed a whole bunch of things for her health. I'm just saying, I don't know now.
Well, one calms you down. Coffee does speed up your heart rate, your heart rate. So coffee is, that's why it wakes you up. The other one just makes you gently wake up and go, this is going to be a great
so I'm wondering if this is like a blood pressure thing, is if you have a shot of sect, you'll be okay.
That sounds different.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor, so don't do this at home.
But hey, if it works for you, try. And if you can try it, it's not going to hurt you, is it?
No.
A little glass.
I know,
what's
it's
that
little.
Gonna do?
It's like a couple teaspoons at the end.
I have a question about the yeast thing. I'm into this.
Yeah, you're into the yeast. Yeah, go ahead. Ask away.
Yeah, is it still
Nancy's Bakery.
I mean, is it still alive when you're drinking it?
No.
Okay.
No, the yeast, that's what creates the sediment, the lees in the wine. So the yeast, basically, whether the wine is fermenting in a tank or in the case of champagne and cava inside the bottle, the yeast cells do die off because they usually die off because of the CO2. What they produce, that CO2, will kill them. They can only take so much of the gas, and also they just run out of food.
Oh,
they eat all the sugars that they are able to consume, and then that's it.
Well, no, but that's good. Because
it sounds like politicians.
Like I have triffids growing inside
No,
me.
It's fascinating, man. Here we
go.
No
triffids.
Don't even start on that. No triffids. Thank you so much, Hilarie. I mean, you give us this amazing education. I know our listeners just really enjoy it as well, and we appreciate it because I think you're helping winemakers all over the world, get people to understand things. I know there's, everybody has a different level of where they're at in the tasting, and all levels are good. The beginners, starting at, like this conversation I had with this lady today, she was like, oh, well, I was trying this, and I was like, well, what I know about rosé is a little dry, so like if you're into the sweet, do the Moscato more than that. I don't know everything at all, but it's just cool when someone is really trying, and sometimes it is talking to someone in a store.
Well, yeah.
You know, just
exactly.
someone trying to figure
and
it out.
that's why it's important to go to, if you want to learn about wine, there's lots of wonderful books out there. The internet, there is incredible information. And, I still think, like you say, talking to people, find, if you're lucky enough to have a small wine shop in your town or your neighborhood, go there and talk to them. And same, even some of the bigger wine shops now, some of the chain stores are starting to realize that they will have more customers and sell more product by actually talking to their customers and providing them with some answers to their questions. Because nobody wants to go into a store or look at a restaurant wine list and feel like a schmuck. You don't want to come across as a know-nothing.
Doesn't work.
And you don't want to embarrass yourself. So, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to putting stuff in your wine glass. Plus, it's really interesting and a lot of fun. And we didn't get to a tenth of the stuff we could have talked about today, just on this one little topic.
I know, and not to mention, we never did talk about the sheep in that one interview.
But see, this is
I know.
We have to have a segment just on sheep and wine.
Oh, cool. I know a lot about sheep.
Okay. Sheep and goats. We'll do a whole thing on sheep and goats. We'll do a segment on sheep and goats so we can bring in goat cheese and talk about
why
having
not?
a goat farm.
I know that.
So Nancy can have a yeast farm too. Like I'll do that.
I just remember from chemistry class that yeast was an interesting thing. It's a catalyst.
Yeah, it's kind of like even those little things we had as kids, those little floaty sea monkey things. How those things
brine
even,
shrimp.
Yeah,
That's
even
brine
that's like
shrimp.
that kind of.
Yeah.
I put yeast and brine shrimp in the same category.
Well, yeast is more like Pac-Man. It keeps eating things.
Everyone, northwindswineconsulting.com. Go there, especially if you're in the hospitality world. The education thing, that bridging that gap is what you do so well, Hilarie. Is like whether it's writing an article or talking and teaching us, you do this. You bridge the gap. Where anyone can understand wine, and it just, to me, it's a big deal because we don't want to feel stupid. I can't pronounce all these things, but I'll learn, and like slowly but surely I am, and I appreciate it, and I know listeners appreciate it.
And we all start somewhere. Even the master sommelier at the best restaurants in New York, they started somewhere.
Exactly. It all starts with the very first sip, so start sipping. I'll be your pusher girl.
Okay, just sip.
I know.
Sip and be curious and take advantage of all that wonderful information out there.
Yeah, it is there. And Hilarie's got a great blog on her website, too. Again, northwindswineconsulting.com. Also, her articles, including this one, are up on blendradioandtv.com. This one will be up in a couple days. But also, Big Blend Radio and TV magazine will be featured in our spring issue in time for everybody to be getting ready for, spring brunch parties, because those are the best thing out. Hilarie, before you go,
yes.
We like to play music for you, right?
I know. I always look forward to hearing what you've found.
I know you've heard this one before and we've played it before, but it just feels it's right because you were talking about monks and everything. And to me, like I talked about water and wine, I did that for a reason. Apparently Jesus turned water into wine, so that's a cool thing.
No, that's a man
right?
of talent.
That's talent.
I know.
Yeah. That is talent. I mean, it really is. Like, put him on the menu. I mean, he's hot looking. But anyhow, let's play the song "Holy Water" because, hey, you know what? It's just the perfect thing because wine is the juice of the gods. That's how I look at it.
It is nectar.
It is the nectar. Okay, yes, put it correctly, Nancy. Fix your daughter. Everybody, this is from Allison August. You are going to end up on a show with her very soon on a World Radio Party, holiday party. I was hoping she'd be on our holiday party coming up, but she has a gig. It happens with musicians. But you and her, she's traveled all over. She loves wine, and I know she listens to your segments. You've been on a show together, just on separate segments. But
and she doesn't spit either.
No, she doesn't spit. And that came after a whole conversation with you on the show. She went through Europe and was Instagramming Nancy and I. I'm not spitting. After our conversation with you. But Allison is out in the L.A. area. This is Holy Water. She's working on another album. This is the title track of her latest one, so you can go to AllisonAugust.com, and it's 2 L's. Again, northwindswineconsulting.com for Hilarie. Thank you, Hilarie. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yay, happy holidays.
Here's some holy
too.
water.
I've been working